Hi everyone, it's me, Rebecca, the Book Nestor. And I wanted to continue a discussion that a retired book nerd on her channel started. And it's about old books. I wanted to share with you some of the old books that I have. They're not rare, they're not expensive, they have something about them that I wanted to collect. The first set that I'm going to show you is this little group. So they're all published by Nelson. And the very first one, which you guys have seen quite a few times already, is my little tiny version of Our Mutual Friend by Charles Dickens. This book was actually a gift to my son from my in-laws who have since passed. And they gave him two. And I'll read the inscription for you on these. To Perrin from Granny and Gramps, your first book of Dickens given to you on your first trip to England, May 2000. So my husband is from England, and we went to go see his family, and it was the first time that they got to meet Perrin. And they gave him two books, The Bleak House and Our Mutual Friend from Charles Dickens. So anybody with an English background, English ties, English blood, definitely should be reading some Dickens, correct? So that's great. Now since then I've added on. We went to visit the area where the Bronte sisters were born and raised, and so quite a few years ago, and I picked up a Wuthering Heights when we were there. And then my most recent acquisition is from a pub in Windsor, of all places, because who knew that's where you can get books. This little guy is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Very excited to get him. And this one has a writing in it from 1949 and has a lovely little photo that was in it as well. So she will stay with that book for as long as I own it. Just went, I saw it on their bookshelves, went to the bartender and said, is there any way that I could possibly buy this book from you? And they really didn't know what to do with that request. And finally she said, could you just do a review on TripAdvisor about the pub, and you can take it. So I was really, really excited. So who knew? Place to go buy books is the pub. In fact, wouldn't that be a dream? I'll do a used bookstore with a pub. Maybe that's a future. The next books that I have is one that I got in Earlsfield, England, when we were living in London, at a cramped, tiny little used bookstore, but oh my God, just filled with books. It looked like it was from a set of some type of book story TV show or something. What's interesting about this one is it's another small one, and I think rumor has it that these are all would be given to students, or this is what students would purchase and then they would carry them in their bags. This one I know was given to a student. It's an award book. So the way that I know this is an award book is because if you open it up, and there you go. Right. It says County Borough of Croydon Education Committee at St. Mark's School. It was a girls' department. It was an attendance prize, so this young lady obviously made her way to school as she was supposed to. Interesting, her name is Flora Squirrel. That's what it says here. It appears that she was in 7th year. It says standard 7, so I'm not quite sure what that would have been back then, because it was awarded to her on July 1910. Now the book itself is a scramble. Yep, A Scramble Amongst the Alps. You see that beautiful, that is an actual photograph, and there's other ones in the book as well, so, and with some illustrations along the edges. So very interesting. Must have been quite an achievement to be given this book. I think it's an interesting choice for a young lady, but I have not scrambled among the Alps yet, but will hopefully do so. The rest of the books are ones that I've picked up, and the irony is I started looking and I was like, oh my gosh, they kind of represent some of my travels, and my two favorite areas in the country is the Northeast, the coast of Northeast and up into Vermont and all those areas, which we now are living, and then the other is the Pacific Northwest, and that's the Washington area. I was born in Washington. Luckily a couple years ago I was able to spend a couple summers out there. Just really loved it, but I collected books while I was there, and one of them that I got was this one. I work with children, and I really believe in the power of literacy and the power of developing language through books, and so anything that can combine that is pretty impressive to me. And so this is a beautiful book that I got with beautiful in papers. Look at that. Yeah. And this book is actually my first collection ever of poetry, and it's Robert Louis Stevenson, A Child's Garden of Verse. So very excited about this book. It's so beautiful. I don't know much about poetry, and I'm hoping to expand that more. Things like My Boat is My Bed is one of the names in here. There's The Land of Nod. I mean, and look, wonderful illustrations. So beautiful book. Now, my name is Rebecca. And I don't know if you've seen a trend, but here on BookTube, if you're named Rebecca, one of your favorite books is probably, oh, I don't know, Rebecca. And it is. Read it in high school, planning on doing a reread this year. This book I picked up out in Washington. Thought it was kind of fitting since that's where I was born. It was published in 1938, so I'm very excited to have that one. And then the other one is, of course, and I've never read this one, and I do need to read it, is Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. This is a beautiful copy. I was beside myself when I saw it. In fantastic shape, and I can't quite figure out, I've got some research to do on this book, but on the end papers or the papers in here, the publishing, it actually says, where's it at? It says copyright 1903, all rights reserved, and then it said published October 1903. So I'm really kind of confused. Because it says copyright 1903 by Kate Douglas Riggs, but the book is written by Kate Douglas Wiggin, I'll have to really take a look into what that is, but that is a gorgeous book. And then to round out my other side, the northeast side, we recently moved up into the New York area, and so I love myself the Strand. And by the Strand, I'm talking about a huge, it's new and used books in there. And I'm always going in there to look to see if I can find any more books like these, just to see if they get, turned in with the used books. And instead I found the Selected Stories of P.G. Wodehouse. So, love this one. But what I didn't realize when I purchased it is that, so we have Rebecca, right? And then we have P.G. Wodehouse. So we have the West Coast and the East Coast, and it's actually from the same collection of some sort. So they will stick together too. And then my final one is actually given to me by my in-laws. I love to garden. I don't get to any longer. I'm now in an apartment, so that's not going to happen. I do love going to gardens, though. But when we were in England, I really, really got to do a lot of gardening, and I loved it. And they got me this huge book called The Gardening Year. And this one will stay with me. This is, of course, based on the English garden, but it has some beautiful illustrations throughout it. And it's a monthly to-do list, basically, and planning, and I mean, the information in this is just amazing. So that one will stay with me for as long as I possibly can hold on to my books. So I'd love to know what old books or, books that maybe you found like I did, Rebecca, that aren't necessarily really, they wouldn't be considered old, but you've got one of the older versions of it, and it's a book that you want to keep. Maybe some gifts that you've been given, or some that have some personal family history attached to them, or just ones you really like. Like you can tell, none of these are collector grade, and that's not what I'm trying to do. These are for me, to surround myself with books that have a personal meaning of some sort. But isn't that why we surround ourselves with books anyway? Love to hear from you. Have a great day.